would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name is Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please don't hold that against me. Welcome to Wednesday, everyone, on this short work week. I hope everyone is having a good one. I would love to thank the listeners that go to the trouble of reaching out, whether you're posting questions on Facebook or on the Google community page. Man, I love the feedback. And I had one recently from a listener who was suggesting how much they would enjoy doing a trip to Memphis and having the show sort of go and do the ground truth in a place. And the more I think about that, the more I love that idea. Absolutely one of the things I want to do once we grow to the show to the point where it makes it possible for me to invest that kind of time. It also helps that I'm kind of hot to find an investment property in an area that I think has a lot of attractive elements to it. And Memphis is on that list. You know, we've talked about a few. Nashville, we talked about, was it yesterday that Nashville was on our list? Memphis has a lot of draw to it. I think we also talked about, was it Chattanooga we talked about that had the fiber? And there's just a lot of great communities, you know, and I know we're focusing right there a little bit on one specific area, but, you know, these opportunities present themselves all over the place. I'd also like to thank the listener who reached out, I believe it was via Facebook, to remind everyone, this was specifically relating to the discussion about considering investing in properties that are around military installations. I believe that was a show early last week. And just reminded me and suggested I remind all of you to make sure to look at crime statistics for those areas. Make sure you're not getting an investment in a high crime area. And I would hope that would be something you do, not just for something like that, but for anything. And with any luck, you're able to spot those neighborhoods from a practical standpoint, usually by driving them. There's usually things that kind of hint at a problem in certain neighborhoods in terms of bars on windows and high fences and a lot of things like that, where folks feel like they're trying to defend themselves against those kinds of things. But it's also good to consider looking at crime stats for those areas. And let me suggest one good way to do it is to simply do a search on the name of your city and then crime heat map on Google. I find that's a pretty useful one. And usually what you end up with is a map where you don't have to worry about crunching numbers. There's just sort of a color map superimposed over the regular map. And you can see areas where it's hotter, quote unquote, in different areas where there's different kinds of crime. And of course, you'll want to examine the kinds of crime, that type of thing, to see how that might influence your investment decision. So I wanted to point that out since someone who's a listener, I believe it was Hayward. Was it Hayward? No, it wasn't Hayward. Hayward was the gentleman who reached out about Memphis. So thank you for that. Today we're going to take a few minutes to talk about laws in real estate, things that have changed over the summer. It's one of the things you have to navigate, and this is the least sexy part of the deal. Always sort of having a good idea of what's going on with different legal changes. There are a few here that we are going to go through. And there are a variety of different areas, but understanding what changes are happening in your local area, you may have laws. Typically, the laws are state related. So if you just go to the website for your state relating to laws and real estate laws, those types of things, they'll usually have a breakdown of the things that have changed or the things that have been updated or the new laws that have been created that might affect your ability to achieve your goals. And of course, there may be certain county limitations depending on what you want to do. I always suggest that if folks want to do modifications to a property, always talk to the authority relating to getting permits. And that could be the county or it could be the city, depending on where the property is located. So keep all that in mind as well. Now, before we jump in and start talking about some of the specifics that are offered up in this article from Risk Media, I want to remind everyone how to get in contact with me. The best way is to head on over to www.therebelbroker.com. Feel free to hit that Contact the Rebel Broker menu item, and you will get to go to a page where you can offer any ideas, suggestions, observations, or questions that you might have, and I'd be happy to answer those as quickly as I can. Of course, you can also, from that front page, you can click the Take the Survey to the Support the Show link. It takes 5 to 7 questions. Just take a quick minute out of your day, but it's a big help to helping the show grow and move forward into a place where I can offer a whole lot more value to you as a listener via all the other methods we talked about the other day, where I sort of summarized some of the areas where I want to expand the show. In addition, you'll also find off to the right a palette of different tools to use in terms of getting access to the different ways you can reach out to the show, including Facebook, Twitter, Google, tons and tons of different ways to get up to the show. And also, just to remind everyone, we are up on iHeartRadio now, and a bunch of different ways to get to the show. So feel free to make use of any of those if you feel those fit your style better than maybe using iTunes or some of the other more common ways that folks get access to the show. Okay. There's a variety of new state laws, and we'll start with California. And one of the first laws equalizes the rules governing escrow services performed by real estate brokers. And I'm going to, and this may be different in your state. I know there are tons of states where the real estate broker holds the money. That's perfectly legal to do here in California. My feeling, though, is that to keep everyone's interests separated, I actually think it makes sense to have independent escrow companies involved. Now, this rule, it governs what real estate brokers, independent escrow companies, and underwritten title companies can do. The law, sponsored by, quote, the California Land Title Association, allows a underwritten title company to handle transactions involving properties located in a county where it is not licensed, among other provisions. So it simply makes it possible for all these different companies to work across county lines. Another California law that's effective beginning of July requires condominium projects' annual budget reports to include a statement about the status as a Federal Housing Administration FHA approved project and as a Department of Veterans Affairs approved project. Now, this is a big one, simply because if you can get access to this sort of information up front, it's going to save you a lot of time. If you're looking to purchase via FHA or VA, it's going to, and because time is of the essence on this stuff, knowing these things up front is exceptionally important. Finding out 2 weeks into your offer being accepted that suddenly you can't get a loan because it's not approved by FHA or VA, because that's how long it takes for these folks to get back to you on whether or not they're approved. Having this statement is going to be a big time saver for you. Now, I know if I was listing a property that was in a condominium project, I would absolutely make sure I've got the documentation indicating whether or not this particular development is FHA or VA approved. But if you are a buyer or a seller and you live in one of these types of communities, a condominium community, make sure to remind and this is something that should be, it's not something your agent actually gets. It's all part of the HOA document release project requirements, which relate to covenants and restrictions, all that other kind of stuff. The homeowners' rules and regulations, the books and the balance sheets and the times for the different meetings, and all these other kinds of things that are usually included in a gigantic pages of data dump that the HOA will provide. You want to make sure that at the very top of that pile is this FHA and VA approved statements, so that you can make sure you can market your home to those folks, but also so that buyers can be aware of this stuff before they write an offer. Imagine a situation where you as a seller haven't gone through and gotten this documentation ahead of time, and you don't know for a fact that you're FHA or VA approved. You get an offer that comes in, and the very best offer that's in your hands is a VA offer. You accept it, and then you discover a couple of weeks into this process that these folks can't perform because their lender isn't approved for your development. There's no compensation for you. You simply have lost all of that time. You don't get to keep any of their deposit unless they went in and released all contingencies. And even then, if it was a VA, there would have been an addendum that would have actually protected them a bit from a lot of that stuff. But in any event, you don't want those kind of complications. You want this to be streamlined. So make sure to remind your agent that that needs to be something at the very top of their list in terms of data to get before the home is listed. And let me also strongly suggest for sellers that you take advantage of this knowledge and request that it be included in the description of your property that your agent's going to put out there. Now, if their system works anything like my system, once I put it into the multiple listing service, it'll then get absorbed into the Zillows and the Redfins and the Trulias, so that all that information that they've entered into their MLS system is being translated into those other systems. And then usually what I do is I'll go in, and if any one of those independent systems offer more photos or more space for text or offer other fields to populate, I'll go through and manually populate those, because typically it's not a one-to-one match with the MLS listing. And make sure that if there is, on some of these sites, there will be a place for them to enter a piece of data that it is FHA or VA approved. That is a huge deal. And if we move into a marketplace where there's fewer buyers, you're going to want to make sure that you're able to stand out as a potential home to purchase for folks that are looking for FHA or VA opportunities. Another law in California requires mobile home park management to provide to buyers and sellers in writing the standards that determine the approval of a prospective homeowner. It also allows management to withhold approval based on concealment of material facts, deceit, or fraud. Now, this is kind of an interesting one. I used to work more closely with my dad over in Santa Cruz County, and he lives in a mobile home park it's difficult to call a mobile home park, but as part of their process, you have to get interviewed by members of the board to be able to buy in the community. So there was really no list of these are the things that we're concerned about type of stuff going on, but this actually creates a law that you have to create in writing what those standards are that determine the approval of a prospective homeowner. So I think this is a good move. I'm always annoyed at, and I always have been, frankly, at this mobile home thing, because this doesn't happen in an HOA anywhere else. If you buy into a single family residential home, there is no interview process you have to go through. But in many of the mobile home parks, this is there, and it's bizarre. And so many of them simply don't tell you what can create a no-pass situation. I've never had one not get accepted, but I have heard of one in which they actually went ahead and told them that the reason why they couldn't live there was because one of them rode a motorcycle. Motorcycles weren't strictly prohibited, but there was a noise regulation in the community, so they felt that would violate the noise regulation. So it's good that this is more codified. I'm not sure about your local areas. This could be very different, but here, this is at least now more clear. Moving on to Florida, which we'll do in just a second. I'm going to take a quick break here for the usual bizarre advertisement I stick in the middle of all of these shows. So we'll be right back in just a second, so don't go anywhere. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Welcome back, everyone. We are running down some of the laws that were passed over the summer in different states here. Right now, we just wrapped up on some of the high points of California laws. We're going to go ahead and talk for a minute here about Florida. They have a newly enacted law that allows property owners to challenge the property assessment indicated on their truth in millage, TRIM notice. The owner, who may be represented by a real estate attorney, agent, broker, or appraiser, can challenge the assessment before his or her county's value adjustment board. Now, that's an interesting one. It's good to see that Florida is moving in this direction to allow for property assessments to be challenged. I'm kind of surprised that didn't already exist in some form. But it's also important to point out that here in California, for instance, you absolutely can do this. You can do this every year. There is a fee involved. I believe, last time I checked, I think it was in the $30 range or $30 to $50 range. But you basically put out data relating to the value of the property to challenge your assessment. I actually have 4 or 5 folks, and I never know what to do with these folks. These are folks who've never been clients. I've never helped them buy a house. I've never helped them sell a house, but they reach out to me about every August or July and ask me to do a opinion of value for them. And at first, I just did them, just did them, right? I didn't do it as an actual broker's opinion of value. There's a formal one that you can do that has a lot of things in relating to it that sometimes will be asked for by courts and other types of things. So I don't do that. I actually do just a very basic. Here are homes that sold in the last 3 months that generally meet the configuration of the home you're interested in, right? So it's a very quick thing. It's something I can do in 10 or 15 minutes, and I just do it for free and hand it out to folks. But I've actually had a couple of them go, this is the 3rd year I've had that you've done this for me. Why don't you ever charge me any money? And I said, well, I figure maybe someday you'll figure I've generated enough good karma. And if you know someone who needs a real estate agent or you need one, maybe you'll give me a call and let me give you my spiel to earn your business. So in any event, this is something that absolutely, if you can find an agent as dumb as me who will do this for you for free, odds are you'll be able to have a little data in your pocket. Now, what's great about this also is, and it depends on where you live. Texas would be tough, right? It would be real hard to figure out, and I have no idea what the rules are in Texas or whether assessments are even a thing, whether it gets reassessed in a year it goes up, all these other kinds of things. In California, your reassessment is linked directly with when the property gets sold, so that's the starting point, and then it can go up 1% per year after that. So kind of get a grip on that. And if you understand what properties are selling for in your area and you look at the assessment from your county, if an assessment is a thing for you, and you feel like your home is currently overassessed given what you could really sell it for, absolutely challenge it. There's really no downside other than potentially, if you live here in California, or at least in my county, you having to pay up to file the form to disagree with that assessment, but potentially it could save you quite a bit of money. Now, of course, quite a bit of money is what we would save here in California, where typically, for an average price home, if you think about 1% is really what you're paying in property taxes, there are folks paying, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 figure it out, do the math, right? 1% per year. To be doing $10,000 in taxes per year is a big deal. So if it's something where you can minimize that amount or bring it down or get the baseline assumption down to a lower value, I suggest you do it. I think it's worth your time. All right, so let's see. What else do we have in Florida land here? Another Florida law addresses homeowners insurance coverage for sinkholes. Previously, it had been limited due to misuse of funds. The law mandates insurance companies offer coverage for moderate damage caused by sinkholes, such as cracking walls, sunken floors, and requires policyholders to document repairs. I'm not a huge wealth of knowledge in terms of what's going on in Florida, but apparently sinkholes are a thing. So just so you know, this law has changed. If you're someone in Florida, if you're an investor in Florida, you might want to check with your current insurance provider and find out if you are covered. If you went for the full-blown insurance coverage, it may simply be something that you need to say, I want, given this change in the law. But I'd go and I'd check and make sure that you've got that coverage. I figure it's better to have coverage than not coverage in those particular situations. Next, in Virginia, a new law shortens the period in which a locality providing water or sewer service can discontinue the service for non-payment. It's reducing that down to 30 days from 60 days. So in Virginia, If you stop paying your water bill and your sewer bill, they can only do that for 30 days rather than 60 days. Not sure how I feel about that. If you stop paying that, I guess it's a health and safety issue, but an interesting line to draw there, right? Not being able to handle, and how do you stop sewer service? Is there a off switch on your sewer service? I can get water, right? I mean, I get that water can be turned off, but can I turn off sewer service? Can a city come and turn off the sewer at the street and prevent your wastewater from going into the sewer? I mean, that would be, I can't imagine that being a thing, but the water thing could be a thing. Oh, all right. A similar new law in Virginia allows a locality providing water or sewer service to place a lien on a property in the amount of the number of months of non-payment versus up to 3 months under a previous statute. So I guess that makes more sense. Now you can simply go for whatever number of months of non-payment there are, you can charge for that. And then on the flip side of that, they've reduced the amount of time that you can turn it off for non-payment. I'm still fascinated by the idea of turning off the sewer. So what happens when you turn on your sink? Let's say you've got water but not sewer. Does it really back up and just do that? Anyway, it's kind of gross when you think about it. Another new law in Virginia makes a litany of changes to existing legislation, the Property Owners Association Act and the Condominium Act, with provisions that do the following. Remember, these are in Virginia. First, eliminate the requirement that an association retain a copy of the lease for a rented unit. It may, however, require the names of the tenants, authorized occupants, and authorized agents and vehicle information. Let's see. Why would you ever eliminate the requirement that an association retain a copy of the lease for a rented unit? I guess they're discriminating between the association and the landlord. Yeah, that must be it. So now you as a landlord don't have to give a copy of the lease to the association. Yeah, okay. I think that makes sense. Interestingly enough, for my unit in Hawaii, apparently at some time in the past, they used to do that. They used to require you to give them a set of keys to your unit and a copy of the lease if you were renting it. So they stopped all that stuff a couple of years ago, and it may be that in Hawaii, a law was passed prohibiting them from requiring that. Next on the list of things that have changed in Virginia, prohibit a unit owners association from conditioning or prohibiting the rental of a unit. Now, this is obviously a big one for folks who may want to become landlords in Virginia. If you purchased while this law was in effect and now it has changed, you may want to give some thought to holding on to it instead of selling it, and consider the possibility of when you do end up deciding to buy a new home, don't sell the unit you're currently in to facilitate a down payment. Start saving up for that down payment now so you can turn the unit you're currently in into a rental. Now, let's see. So, again, prohibit a unit owners association from conditioning or prohibiting the rental of a unit, making an assessment, or imposing a rental fee or any other fee except as expressly provided for in law. So this sounds like it's solving a very specific problem where associations were putting limits on whether or not someone could rent a unit or charging extra if someone was renting a unit. And all of that just sounds absolutely nuts that was allowed. Next, prohibit associations from evicting tenants or requiring power of attorney to evict tenants, and prohibit associations from requiring power of attorney from landlords who are represented by an agent and present a property management agreement or equivalent document. Wow, I don't know if this is nuts. This is a lot of weird stuff. I tell you, if I had an association suddenly tell me they wanted all of this stuff from me, they wanted a power of attorney, they wanted all these other documents, boy, I'd think twice about being an investor and owning one of those properties. Next on the list, prohibit associations from requiring use of their lease or addendum unless association bylaws require that their addendum be attached. Well, of course, the association bylaws would require that their addendum be attached. I guess unless it's an undocumented requirement. So you can't require them to use their lease, but you can have them provide an addendum. And I suppose that makes sense in that they want whoever's living there to also agree to the bylaws of the association, to take care of the common areas, all those sorts of things that a renter may not be aware of, since they wouldn't be getting a copy of the HOA's rules and regulations. Finally, Provide that the unit owner may designate a licensed broker to act as the owner's authorized representative with respect to any lease. Amazing, again, that this was not already a thing. Typically, when I am hiring a property manager to be my authorized representative, I have a document that gives them that power. I'm not real sure why there would be any question of that based on who the folks are in the HOA. So that also seems a little bit odd to me. But good news. In Virginia, it sounds like it's become just a little bit easier to be a landlord in areas where there's an association involved. Now, the only other interesting legal-related thing that I'd probably suggest that's still causing issues, and this comes from 2015. If you remember, we did a show back in October of 2015 about the new TRID rules, which took effect on October 3rd, 2015. What's interesting is there was a recent article about delays to mortgages and all these other types of things that are being tied directly to TRID issues. So I wanted to point that one out, and just so that everyone can get an idea of how to calibrate yourself to timing your close so that you actually do it at the time that you're hoping for. Now, while the TRID issues did cause delays in the first quarter and in the second quarter, according to sources, they've actually reduced a little bit. So it's one of those things where it's starting to wind down in terms of how much effect it's having. But I'm also going to include an article from August 22nd of this year that's obviously very, very up to date that will give you sort of a brief insight into this. Just make sure that you're talking to your lender. You want to make sure that you're calibrated with your lender in terms of what delays the TRID might impose. And I'm finding an awful lot of realtors still don't really get this, and they'll continue to write offers in a way that don't really account for this. To give you a really good example of bizarre delays, I'll share. This is a story that doesn't really relate to TRID, but typically, you're going to want to add 5 to 10 days for TRID related things. And this is all mortgage. This is all underwriter related. So this is you really needing to pay attention. Now, here in California, you don't need to worry about your personal inspection stuff, but the items of the contract relating to your appraisal contingency and your loan contingency, in my opinion, you should be pushing those out a few more days. The default on those, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. I think it's 17 days or 20 days, something in that ballpark. I'm suggesting that for both of those requirements, you push those out another 5 to 10 days just to give yourself enough time. If there's one thing I hate doing, it's having to fill out that form to request more time for something. So just make sure you've calibrated yourself to that. And this is a national thing, so it may have a different level of impact in different marketplaces. But remember, it's been around now for almost a year, and it's still causing issues. So just make sure to keep it in mind. And I thought it would be appropriate to mention this as we're reviewing legal-related stuff. All right, folks. I absolutely appreciate you spending your valuable time with me for at least a little bit of the day. Thanks again for listening. I'll talk to y'all next time.